percentage of all of them?
That's 140,000 a year, somewhere in that range.
Okay, I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Because the fire department has it, but not as in large amounts like the PD does, but I'm wondering if there's a solution, instead of paying the overtime, to hire one additional.
Well, we did, that probably will reduce it somewhat. I think we hired one police officer.
So one officer is responsible. We signed a contract here just a couple months back with them. It used to all be time and a half. Now we signed a contract that is strict wage.
Straight time?
Right, but they cover the exact wage.
Okay, I just needed.
That's why I didn't know it was still coming out overtime.
Okay, thank you. So I'm done.
Okay, no other discussion, please call vote.
We need a second.
We have a second.
Yeah.
Somebody second?
We got a motion.
Motion.
I made a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Okay, call vote, please.
Bernardo,
Yes.
Uno,
Yes.
Griego,
Yes.
Lopez.
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Item 6. 6A, public hearing for consideration of an ordinance in the city of Trinidad, Colorado repealing the 2009 International Private Sewage Disposal Code, International Plumbing Code, and the 2011 edition of the National Electric Code, repealing and reenacting Articles 1 and 2, Chapter 5, Buildings, and repealing and reenacting Article 1 of Chapter 8, Fire Prevention, of the Code of the City of Trinidad, Colorado, for the purposes of adopting by reference uniform codes for the regulation of buildings, to wit, the 2018 editions of International Building Code, International Residential Code, International Mechanical Code, International Fuel Gas Code, International Energy Conservation Code, International Existing Building Code, International Property Maintenance Code, International Fire Code, and replacing currently adopted building codes in conflict therewith. Open this hearing. Do we have a staff opinion on that?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Dan Weed, Colorado Code Consulting, and the commercial building inspector here for the city. First of all, were there any questions from what we've done before I cover the little amendment here?
Questions?
We do have one small but important amendment that has come up in the last paragraph of the sheet here. Since the first reading, staff has made this amendment to eliminate the adoption of the plumbing and electrical codes from the whole body of codes that you just read, because the city doesn't plan to enforce, we haven't for years, don't plan to enforce the plumbing and electrical. That's done by the state. The state automatically has jurisdiction for the enforcement of the plumbing and electrical codes, and we would have to opt in with the state and actually take that over through an agreement to do that. We have no desire to do that. It's working fine. The state has been responsive to inspection requests and to handling that. So rather than cause an issue, the language that had been in there is if the city rather than the state is performing plumbing electrical inspections, then these are the codes that are adopted. And it just seems like it's speculative language, not something that really needs to be in there. Just better to say, let's not adopt those two, continue to let the state do that. They're on the latest codes all the time as well, and that'll match what we're doing. So that is the amendment. So we would just request that it's recommended that council approve the ordinance as amended on second reading. Any questions?
Question?
Is that amended,
No, I haven't.
has that amendment been posted in our packet as the amended portion?
Yes.
Okay, I saw some red sections, I was just.
No question.
Nothing for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone in the audience to speak for or against the consideration of the ordinance for the International Building Code update? None? Opposed? Item 2 of that, second reading of the ordinance of the City of Trinidad. Clerk, would you please read that?
An ordinance of the City of Trinidad, Colorado, repealing the 2009 International Private Sewage Disposal Code, International Plumbing Code, and the 2011 edition of the National Electric Code, repealing and reenacting Articles 1 and 2 of Chapter 5 Buildings, and repealing and reenacting Article 1 of Chapter 8 Fire Prevention of the Code of the City of Trinidad, Colorado, for the purpose of adopting by reference uniform code for the regulation of buildings, to wit, the 2018 editions of the International Building Code, International Residential Code, International Mechanical Code, International Fuel Gas Code, International Energy Conservation Code, International Existing Building Code, International Property Maintenance Code, International Fire Code, and the replacing currently adopted building codes in conflict therewith.
Could we have a motion to approve the reading as amended as well?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion. No discussion? Call vote, please.
Benado,
Yes.
Goodall,
Yes.
Grego,
Yes.
Lopez.
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Item B, public hearing for consideration of an ordinance in the city of Trinidad, Colorado, repealing and reenacting section 1-8 general penalty subsequent violation, suspension, or revocation of license of chapter 1 general provision to amend the minimum and maximum penalties where no specific penalty is provided. Hearing is now open. You have anything from anyone from staff who wants to have an opinion on that?
This is just the penalty portion.
Right. I do have one item on that. Last time we talked about this, there was some question about those people who could not pay the fine. And I recommended, considering community service, was that brought up? What in lieu of?
Now, if it went to municipal court, it would be something that the judge would have the authority to decide one way or the other. We couldn't really recommend it or,
Okay.
um,
I just thought I'd bring that just in case, for a good explanation.
that's always, I think that's always a possibility.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience to speak for or against the consideration of this ordinance? Hearing is closed. Second reading of the City of Trinidad. Would you please read that, clerk?
An ordinance of the City of Trinidad, Colorado, repealing and reenacting section 1-8 general penalty, subsequent violation, suspension, or revocation of license of chapter 1 general provisions to amend the minimum and maximum penalties where no specific penalty is provided.
Motion to approve second reading.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? Call vote, please.
Benado,
Yes.
Goodall,
Yes.
Grego,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Item 7A, second reading of an ordinance. Please read that, please.
We're
I'd like to read it first. Would like to read it?
Okay. An ordinance approving the power purchase agreement between the city and Tri-State Generation and Transmission Association Corporation Tri-State and the termination of power supply agreement between the city and Arkansas River Power Authority, and approving ARPA's execution of agreements, funding and assignment agreement with Tri-State, and providing other details in connection therewith.
Motion to approve?
We'll just take.
I think motion to table.
Well, okay, we do take a motion, and then we could have a discussion at the table at that point, then we call for another motion.
Okay.
So we need a motion to approve. Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Now we can ask for a
I
table.
recommend that we table it.
Hunter still is not there. We've been busy pricing the bonds. Hopefully we'll return to make earnest negotiations this coming week.
Okay, motion to table, please.
I so move.
Second.
Second.
Any other discussion? Call vote, please.
Benado,
Yes.
Goodall,
Yes.
Grego,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Item 8, miscellaneous business, 8A, liquor store license renewal requested by Trinidad Beer and Wine Depot LLC doing business as Trinidad Beer Liquor and Wine Depot at 111 East Kansas Avenue. Is there a representative here? Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Is there any questions? Les, did you have any questions on, concerns on any of the?
I don't know if council does. I mean, there was part of your packet, there was a violation, and while under suspension, while the punitive sanction was under suspension, there was an allegation of a new violation. But I would just like to emphasize that was done by the Department of Revenue, and it was a setup or kind of a sting by the Department of Revenue, and they meted out, if you will, the sanction for allegedly violating the liquor code. So I really don't have any further questions. I don't know if council does, as long as you're aware of it. Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Gagelin, I just have a question. Are your people tips trained?
Yes.
Are all of them? Okay.
Yes.
So you've taken adequate precautions?
Yes.
I understand. All right, that's all I've got.
Human error.
Any other questions?
But for the grace of God.
Kim, did we have a motion and a second on that?
Yes.
Okay. There's no other discussion, it's called vote?
Donato,
Yes.
Goodall,
Yes.
Griego,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Item 8B, consideration of visioning project, motion to approve.
Could you
Yeah.
table this until we have a chance to negotiate with
Thank
Ms.
you.
Cochran?
Okay, motion to approve then, please.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
I make a motion that we table this.
Okay. Call vote, please.
Who seconded that? Anybody?
Yes, somebody did.
What?
For that one?
There's been a motion to
I
approve.
second it.
You seconded, yeah.
Yeah.
A motion to table, please.
Motion to table, so moved.
Second,
Second.
call vote, please.
Donato,
Yes.
Goodall,
Yes.
Griego,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Rico.
Yes. Item C, resolution updating the restrictions of the use of water and calling for level 3 restrictions to be enforced. Motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? Call vote, please.
Donato,
Absolutely. Yes.
Goodall,
Yes.
Griego,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
Miles,
Yes.
Rico.
Yes.
Just to follow up, I wanted to make sure all of you know that we made up flyers and we're delivering them to every address in town. So for people to say they don't know, now it's a lot harder.
Yeah, yesterday I had a fireman scare me. I was coming outside and I saw the fire truck on my road. Did you see the fire?
I think that's really helpful because part of the flyer also talks about no fireworks. So I think it's really helpful when our firefighters are helping and taking those messages.
Audra was kind enough to give me some, and I distributed them to all my parks also.
Fireworks?
Yeah. Yeah, she's very kind.
I think you've done an excellent job in the back of that form that we got, was explaining things of different things of the water and stuff. It was really, and I appreciate Mike, Mr. Son doing what they do there. Thank you, Mike.
Item 9, council reports. Joe,
Starting with
anything?
me. I just have one thing, and I don't know if I could really bring this up at this time, but if I get out of line, you could get me with the gavel or something, but I was told about a couple of weeks ago, and maybe Mr. Beach could answer this situation, is that the state gave us a pretty good fine for our landfill and our cover not being, our trash not being covered. I also learned that, like I say, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I'm gonna say it, that one employee was given 3 or 2 days off because of this suspension. But I'm not worried, I'm worried about the employee and I'm worried about the trash situation. But a lot of this is, what's going on is these contractors are going in after 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're dumping this trash. And the poor guy that's operating the machinery to cover this trash don't have enough time to do it. The state gave us a fine for this. I know, I've been on this council forever, and the state has given us lots of fines because of trash going on the fence or trash not being covered. And that's the explanation I get from these guys. And I can see the problem. They come in there with all this trash at 3 o'clock, how in the heck are our guys supposed to take the beating and get disciplined for, you know, for somebody else's mistake?
If I may?
Sure.
Councilwoman Donovan, Tom Beach, Public Works Director, Landfill Overseer. We were not fined by the state in any way for this most recent incident.
Okay.
We were fined last May of 17, for several different things, which were included the tires we had on site. We ended up bailing or shredding the tires. The incident which you speak of, the employee that you speak of, has shown a history of neglect for not only machinery in his job, but for his actual carrying out of his job. That's why and damage to citizens' vehicles for inattentiveness as he was operating machinery. That's why he was given days off. Okay. It was not because of the fine that we didn't receive for putting the cover on.
I think we have to have something set up, if I may, Mr. Mayor. I think we have to have something set up where these contractors or whatever that bring this, they have to get there at a certain time to give this guy a chance to do this cover. I mean, there's a lot of times I'll go out there and that trash still isn't covered because the poor guy he's so far behind from doing basic contract covering and stuff like this. It's just it's an ongoing factor. And I always told you about the landfill, about getting stiff fines from the state. We can't ignore it. We got to help these guys, and I'm not talking just for the city employees or whatever, but I think there has to be something done at a certain time that these contractors come in, dump their trash, and give that guy a certain time. He gets off what, 3:30?
3:30, yes.
3:30, the guy gets off from the operating. This guy comes in with a big ton of trucks at 3 o'clock at 3:15. How are you supposed to cover that now, guys? So it's a portion that we have to look into this, so we don't get fined, and we don't, you know, it kind of covers our help, our guys too. That's all I have to say.
I think take a look at that and see if there's anything.
Well, if I may, under normal circumstances, the last truck allowed on the face is at 3 o'clock.
That's too late.
And if it's a commercial carrier, this compacted trash, it won't blow. So we really don't have to worry about that too much until the following morning we can put stuff on. If it is a contractor, say a roofing contractor, or whatever, then they will put the dirt on top of it that evening, just to keep it.
What about the sewage or something else like that? What time?
Oh, no.
Nothing.
If there's sewage, if they're bringing out effluent from the sewage plant, they make special arrangements and they come at a special time and they are told.
That's covered at that time.
They are covered immediately. And they're told ahead of time how many loads they can bring per day and per week to make sure that it's taken care of.
Well, I just wanted to ask that, and I appreciate you, Tom, for telling me this, because there's two sides to each story, so.
I have
appreciate
paperwork
it.
in my office.
Thank you.
You can see that.
Okay,
You're
thank you.
welcome.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so we attended CML conference in Vail. It was very informative. One of the sessions I attended was Amendment 64 turns 5. What's next? So I know it plays a big part in our community. So got a couple of numbers for everybody. 2018, we already know Canada went legal. Michigan and New Jersey are going, and they're estimating in the year 2020, Arizona, Hawaii, Illinois, Rhode Island, New Mexico, Maryland, Vermont, and DC are going to go legal. That's kind of the layout of what they're predicting. I didn't realize there are only 2 states that have not addressed marijuana in one form or another, and that is Kansas and Idaho are the only 2 that have taken no actions whatsoever on marijuana. So right now we have a bipartisan bill going through with Elizabeth Warren and Cory Gardner. It's going to be the federal cannabis bill they're trying to get through, which will get marijuana off the Schedule 1. And also they're predicting that by next year that there'll be a States Act that's passed that will do the same thing, and it'll leave it up to states for recreational legalization. So I found all that pretty interesting. It plays a big part on our economy here in Trinidad. So one of the questions that come up was enforcement on federal water use for marijuana grows. So far, with the federal water that is being used, that the federal government is not enforcing that at all. I found that to be interesting. So that's all I have on the marijuana, but I'm not done yet. So I am the liaison to the parks. We've had the AmeriCorps volunteer group here. They're gonna be wrapping up and they'll be leaving on July 7th. Them working with our local volunteers, they've completed work on the new sandstone loop, which goes north from the Wormhole Loop Trail, and it's a little over a mile long in length. So we have a send-off party for them this coming Friday night. I think invitations have been sent out. If you receive one and need to RSVP, we're gonna give these guys a send-off. Next, we have concerns about the tennis courts. One of them has been completed, the other one still needs a net. There's still no netting up to prevent the golf balls from entering the golf court, or the tennis courts. And there are no lights that have been installed. They have concerns that they hope the contractor has not been paid in full yet because it's been weeks since they've seen any progress or completion. Do we know what's going on, sir?
I'm back.
I'm back.
Yes, I do actually. I've been trying to contact the supplier for the other part of the hardware for the net, which at this point, we're just going to go to Big R and buy a $20 boat wrench, and that's what we need to put the net up. Or the actual playing net, not the safety net.
Correct.
The safety net is another issue altogether. Trying to get somebody at this time of year to come down to a safety net's been a difficult challenge. We're gonna try to use our local power and light crew to go out and see what they can do with the lights that are there. There are lights on site, we just don't know how well they're gonna take to be re-established. But once we get the safety net up, the tennis net itself should be up in the next week or so at the most. I mean, it's sitting up there, all we have to do is get a winch, like I said.
Fantastic.
And the safety net is an issue, though, I would agree with you.
All right.
We're still working on it. That was not, technically, that was not part of the surface company's contract. Just
Thank you very much. That's all I have, sir.
Okay, I think as I mentioned before, we closed on the Lamar Army project refunding bonds with Goldman Sachs, and we got a really good result. I think we picked up $800,000 in present value savings in the last 2 days. So total savings, present value of about 13 million, just under 13 million. Average annual savings are in excess of $800,000. Now, you know, these bonds are gonna, if the tri-state deal goes away or there's no other arrangement, these are gonna be real savings to work on. But we anticipate that if the tri-state deal does go through, then these bonds are gonna be refunded. The other thing to mention is I attended their meeting with a couple city council members from Pueblo, and I thought we had a really productive conversation. I think it was kind of flattering just to get their attention and we tell them what we've been doing, right? And your name came up frequently, Mara, and Andrew did a good job.
I heard he did a great job.
Yeah, he did. And that's all I've got. Carlos.
The Urban Forestry Board had a meeting last week. One of the things that they're trying to do at this point is get their plan together for the 2019 budget and projects process. So be aware that they will be hopefully a little bit more on schedule with aligning with the budgetary process so they can have a plan for what they would like to expend those funds for hopefully next year. They also are working on an information access for citizens. So basically a link through the city's website. I think that they're going to try to reach out to someone, maybe Monica or someone in that regard, regarding having an access point where people can get involved and engaged with other plantings and, you know, aesthetic beautification projects here in the community. And they would also like to make some more printed materials so that way they can hand it out and get people more involved in a philanthropic way. Next, I also went to the CML conference. I'm happy to report that we now have a voting member on the CML executive board. thanks to the help from our council members and those who voted for me, so yay. Sorry.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Congratulations.
And I really felt that the conference was interesting. I attended one class that was about television and fake news and how media is changing, and we really need to start paying more attention to our local media, as they do not get to be as cable news partisan oriented as some of the larger networks can be, but yet we can still get a lot of our local news for weather and local events and things like that. Granted, still the news tends to be very negative because that's what sells, unfortunately, but maybe we can start to kind of come together a little bit and pull away from red versus blue, but just say we're a community. And I thought that was the biggest thing I took from that particular session. A lot of great sessions. Ms. Dana Crawford spoke very highly of us at a luncheon, which is part of maybe what she's paid to do. But either way, it was very nice to see, and a lot of other people from other communities were like, wow, that was one hell of a PR push that she just gave Trinidad. For the majority of her talking time was about Trinidad. So our name is definitely on the tongues of other communities. People were coming up to me asking for our anti-dilapidation ordinance to try to enhance their community's ordinance. So right now, we are at the forefront of being a trendsetter for something that other communities now are looking to do. So I thought that was very nice to hear about. And Cripple Creek was looking into it, and so was, I think, Buena Vista and another town I forgot right now. But it was nice to hear them asking about what we're doing down here. That's what I have.
Well, I didn't go to CML. I let the experts take care of that. But I did go to the tourism board meeting, and we were on we didn't really do much as far as policy making because Greg was gone to CML. Mr. Downs was gone to CML. We've got one new member, so we're just kind of status quo until the next meeting. We did get presentations from KRDO, Tara? Yeah, KRDO television and KCRT radio to start advertising. But we need to set our priorities about what we're going to do. We're trying to find out what's the most effective way to market this community. So that turned out very well. We have another member that resigned. So we need somebody else to fill that position. Another thing I did, Rusty was there last Wednesday as well, and I participated in the cleanup with the city staff. And I was assigned with the Power and Light guys down on the eastern section between Linden Avenue and the Kit Carson bypass for the river walk, and those guys did an exceptional job. I think they've got about 20 bags of junk from river bottom.
And 7 marijuana plants.
7 marijuana plants, yes.
Yep.
And if anybody tells you there's no advantage to being old, they're lying, because I got treated like a queen that day. They said, Mrs. Grego, you just stay here on the flat surfaces and pick up what you can. And I got a full, maybe 10 gallons of tissues and stuff like that. Here they come with truckloads, but I think it was a great event, and we gotta, I think as we move forward, we're gonna have to start thinking of other team building exercises we can do between council and the other departments. There's some of those gentlemen that were on Power and Light that I've known all of their lives for sure, and some new ones. But it was really nice to be able to sit there and talk to them one-on-one. And I put on my Facebook page, we commiserated, because they think they're the only ones that get chastised by the community. I said, no, sir. We're right there with you. We're right there with you. But I admire those guys. They did a great job, and I think it was a great event. You should be proud of them, because those guys were great. And thank you to other ladies and staff people that participated. That was very nice. We're going to have to do it again, something like shopping. Group shopping. That would be wonderful.
You can do shop with a cop.
Yeah, I did that, but
Okay.
they wouldn't let me shop. I just had to rap. They didn't trust me. No, but that's all right.
Okay. First of all, I want to say congratulations to Mr. Lopez for being
Thank you.
elected to the Board of Directors for the Colorado Municipal League.
Thank
So
you.
hopefully you represent us well.
I'll do my best.
I'm in agreement with you about not the shopping part of it. You know, the cleanup, it's amazing the amount of junk that is trash that's thrown around there. As a matter of fact, this is the third cleanup this year. And it's been probably processed the same places 3 times. So that's amazing how much trash is accumulated from April, when TCF did theirs, to then the next one that was done, and then this one. How much trash you guys have collected?
Yeah.
I participated in the city one year a while back, and I participated in the TCF one. And trash is unbelievable what you can pick up. At CML, I was really, really happy to see the number of times that Trinidad was mentioned. I think it was already mentioned here. Herb Halter mentioned Trinidad. Even the governor mentioned Trinidad. Dana. And there was one other event that I had participated in. I can't remember which one it is, where they showcased Trinidad. So it was good to hear, and like Mr. Lopez was saying, sitting around the table afterward and before, people were asking questions and, what are you guys doing? And, why are you doing this? Or how's it working for you? These are all things that were coming up. And then it kind of really came full circle last week when this group from Pueblo asked to come down and meet with us, which we did. And we spent about 2.5 hours with them. I think you left, and after you left, some of us went downtown. We went down Main Street, down Commercial, kind of circled back around, just kind of talking to them about some of the buildings and what we were doing. And they were pretty impressed with everything we got going on. So, I think that Trinidad is on Colorado's radar right now, which is a good thing to see. One thing that was I attended was that there was an ADA event at CML. And really, I guess when you attend that, and Tom could, and then probably anybody that has attended any of the meetings, you really come away really kind of disgruntled. Because basically, we have no leg to stand on to hardly do anything from. That's kind of what I gathered. Because, as a matter of fact, after the meeting, I talked to some of the people, and I told one day, I said, basically, we're, you know what? And she said, yes, we are. And so that's really the truth of the matter. It's an animal that we have. The gentleman that's assigned to the Trinidad area was there, and I went up at that and asked him a question. Ayers or something like that? You probably know, I can't remember what the gentleman's name was. But I asked him a question and he refused to answer. Yes. He said, I won't answer that question. So anyhow, that's how stiff-lipped they are. And the lady that was there was, people were asking questions and she would say yes, no, and that was about it. So it is what it is. Also attended the development tools and something about Tura. And the focus was not only on Tura, but after Tura, which is the next, after the 25 years, the downtown development agreement or association, whatever it is. And what it is that Tura, from what I found out, talking to people from Aurora, it took them about 7 years before they got their urban renewal authority actually underway. We've had our urban renewal authority for going on 3 years now. So it's going to take time, so I hope that these people are not getting discouraged, because it does take time to develop all the tools and start getting some of that tax increment financing into their pockets. So I think that's one thing that we need to impress upon them, that don't get discouraged. It's important that you stay, with the program. the demographic changes, and of course, there again, I think that was where Trinidad was also showcased. I'd hope Springs was the other one that was showcased pretty heavily. This one went to the Amendment 64 as well. That one came back with the same thing that you brought up. I attended the recycling, which I already mentioned, the elected officials luncheon, which I attended as well. One thing I wanted to mention tonight is the Amtrak. This is an animal that is becoming pretty discouraging, and I was not able to attend, but I'm able to attend by calling in last week. And what's happening is Mr. Anderson, who is the new CEO of Amtrak, wants to curtail all the services pretty much outside of the far west coast and the far east coast, and everything in between he wants to turn into a bus service. They're talking about busing people bringing from Chicago to Kansas, busing everybody else to Albuquerque, and then from Albuquerque to California. So there's a lot of congressional delegation that is really on this. They're pretty disappointed. I don't know what's going to become of this, but they're really, I do know that they are putting some pressure on Amtrak to what to do with this. The big question that came up was at the meeting was, all of us have put in money. Are we going to get reimbursed if this thing goes away? Because we put in already twice, I believe, for this money. So we're going to get our $25,000 back. Of course, at this time, that's an unknown thing. But that is a big disappointment as to the way this gentleman is thinking about.
Isn't Amtrak a federally subsidized entity?
I think they're subsidized like 60%. So they are heavily subsidized.
Because there was a woman in town that was very concerned about this and was wondering if we could get together a coalition of other communities along the rail and create some sort of a representative to go to Congress or something to speak on our behalf, to say, hey, this is the lifeblood sometimes of moving people out of our communities that may not have vehicles or means to an airport. This is the only way for them to get anywhere.
We actually have that. Rick Klein out of La Junta has been organizing that for quite some time. He's got a large email list, and he can marshal a lot of people. When it was train day, we had that big gathering of people that took pictures here. Well, he arranged to have people do that all along the rail. And so there were a lot of postings of that, and they organized a lot of writing campaigns and different things to try to get this to change, because the CEO has announced he wants to shut the lines down on 12/31 of 18.
So that's the idea at this point in time, is that's the deadline is 12/31. So we'll find out to see what kind of pressure that our delegation, national delegation, can put on them. I think that's really the only way they're going to do that is by saying we're going to pull back on some of their subsidy. I think that's the thing that we're going to have to press upon. As a matter of fact, that is going to be my next move as part of the commission, is I'm going to call each one of our congressional delegation and tell them that maybe that's a consideration they need to look at, is to consider holding back some of the funding to press this. It's a serious issue, so I don't know where it's going to land at this point in time. So as far as the commission is going, we're moving forward with, because we got that $2.5 million to hire staff. We're still working at trying to hire somebody for the staff and other things. There's some community participation that's going to be coming around. We're hiring an organization that will do community input, and they will be visiting all of the communities along the lines from campus. So the best thing to do is even letter writing from the community. So that's all I have. Greg?
Sounds like all of the tensions are finally calming down in NPGA, our gas supplier. There was just a lot of controversy about several of the members who wanted to break away from NPGA and go to another group, or even dissolve it. Finally, they pushed it to an agenda item in the last meeting and just voted to keep it the way it was. So I think Mike was a little confused. And then we've got an issue that that BP is proposing that we're struggling with a little bit, and it's to form a 30-year agreement to buy gas through them, and you get a discount for doing that, and we're just not clear on what times we can use it, what times we can't, because one of the issues that we're dealing with now is now that the local gas producers have sold and we have new players in the market, they want to sell us natural gas. And we really don't have a way to buy it directly from them, but we can buy it from them through NVGA. And so like when we were visiting with BP the other day, I asked the question of, can we still buy from local suppliers if we have this contract with you? And they said, we'll follow up and talk to you later, but they didn't really answer the question. And it's something that we're going to have to pay attention to, because we have, I think, 1 million cubic feet of natural gas a day flowing right by Trinidad. And
Who is BP again? Is that British Petroleum or?
Yes.
Okay.
so they don't use that anymore. Now they just use BP.
Yeah.
So
Ever since that oil spill.
Yeah.
I think that went away.
That's right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
What's our consumption? Do you have a?
About 55,000 MCF.
Is that high?
1,000 cubic feet. Is that high?
Is that the high point in the winter time?
No, that's a year.
Year round. It fluctuates.
So that seems to be calming down, and we'll be, they're doing a study right now to try to see if they can reduce our administrative costs, because we've said that those are way too high compared to numbers we've seen in other areas, and hopefully we'll make some progress there in the next few months. So, another issue, we received a communication from Fort Carson. They would like to set up a meeting with the city council sometime during the last 2 weeks of August or the first 2 weeks of September. So if you could check your calendars and let us know if there's a block that you just flat can't do. And then we'll try to narrow down a time.
First week of September is about all that's good. I have Blues Fest the end of August, and I'm gonna leave for China the 15th
Okay,
of September.
that's what I need to know.
Right, that's what I'm speaking of.
Okay, thank you. So we'll shoot for first 2 weeks of September, or,
I'm out of here on the 14th for sure, September.
oh, that's when you go to China.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And that's what we'll target. They didn't give us any real details of what the meeting would be, but I guess we'll just see. Then water restrictions. Just to get the word around, we tried putting on our website, we tried social media, we tried all sorts of different things. And what we settled on yesterday morning was, let's just make up flyers and deliver them to all of the customers in the city, the different addresses. And I think finally we're getting the word around of what water restrictions are and what we expect people to do. And we thank people for whatever they're doing, because we have seen a slight reduction in the amount of water drawn every day, and so we're going in the right direction. So far, we have pulled North Lake down 2 feet.
Mr. Son, if I may, if I may, how do we, or do we have any type of control of the water stations, like located, like in Chicago or out here? Or
Well, we've been talking about.
How do we do that?
We've been talking about that too. Trinidad has pretty cheap water rates, and we do have the ability, when these water vendors go over a certain limit, that they hit a next tier of water payment. And I think we need to maybe start enforcing that and telling them that that water is to be drawn primarily for domestic use, not for anything else.
That's what I was trying to state was, if that water is used for domestic only purposes, that's great.
It's hard
if
to
that
do that.
water is used for something else, it's not too great.
I understand that.
I'm not gonna say what I'm talking about, but you know what I'm talking about.
The biggest
Yeah,
challenge.
cattle.
The biggest challenge we have with it is that some of these vendors, people can just come in and use a credit card, and
Yeah.
There's just no way to track it in terms of day in and day out and enforcing what they're using it for. So, a big part of this is, I think, again, we're going to be doing more and more education to get people to understand that this is a limited resource. And
It's a vital resource.
Yes.
Did we ever find out why the Department of Corrections is?
Yeah.
Mike asked the question yesterday.
Yeah, I talked to him, well, this morning I talked to him again, and, not sure where it's going, but they've already started, their conservation efforts down there. It's just a lot of water. They've got 400 and some, inmates down there. So
468, Mike.
468.
But that's a lot of
That's a lot of water.
water.
It's 100
Yeah.
120,000 gallons a day.
It's a lot of
So-
showers.
No comment.
No
A lot of
Cuba?
bar of soap, lots of soap.
That's right. Oh, the totes are right behind you. That's right.
Let's recycle back so we can water our lawns.
Yeah, right.
I did an interview a few days ago with a Hispanic newspaper or publication out of the Denver area, and that was primarily about economic development efforts in Trinidad and what we're doing and what we're looking at for various things. And he was interested in what Dana Crawford is involved in with the city of Trinidad. So it was a good conversation. I understand it's already been published. He told me that he was going to send me a copy, but I haven't seen one. And then this morning, found out that the High Times interview that I did made it all the way to France because I did an interview with someone from France.
Local.
Yeah, we are now international.
In high times.
In high times.
That's right, yeah.
So you speak Spanish and French?
Do I?
Oui, oui.
I can't even get by in France. I learned it for 1 year when I was in 5th grade, and that's the best I can do. And then the discussion about Tura, one of the things that they've been working on for some time that I think will be addressed and approved at this next meeting is a facade grant program. So the program would provide up to $10,000, up to 20% of the project, up to $10,000, to do a structural improvement to the facade. So it has to be something meaningful. It can't be painting and awning and that kind of thing. It has to be something that fixes the facade.
Is it up to $10,000?
Yes. So it's 20% up to 10,000. So 10,000 is if it's a $50,000 project.
The funding that they have from this, is that from the funding that we have allocated to them? Is that where they're gonna draw that from? or-
Well, they're getting $30-some thousand a year from their tax increment, and so that would probably be the big thing that's helping to fund this, because they want to limit it to 3 of them a year, so that'd be pretty much their entire draw. And they are trying to figure out a project that they can invest in for that $100,000 in seed money too. And we're also having a discussion how ADO plays off of urban renewal, and I think they really do go hand in hand. ADO is the entity that will remove dilapidated properties, and then they can turn around, and if urban renewal wants to acquire them, then they can do the redevelopment of that property. But we have several options that we have available for that. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that we are making some progress.
Good.
That's it.
Counselor.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The first thing I wanted to do is to call your attention to a letter that I wrote and sent to all of you this morning by way of email. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. If anyone needs a hard copy, please let me know. I do want to tell you that the recipient of that letter, he asked me if he could have until July 20th to respond and get back to me. I had suggested July 10th. He sent July 20th. He's going to be out of town and visiting family, so I told him I didn't think there would be a problem with that. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware that that was there. Just real quickly, I too went to the CML in Vale, and I have some, well, I derive some satisfaction, I guess, from the mayor having gone to a number of these things. Most of those were the legal seminars. And I know you also went to the railroad law, which I did not go to, but you did. So I just wanted to say that, like, your takeaway from the railroad law was one of, it wasn't real exciting, shall we say. But one thing I wanted to say, and that is we had a presentation scheduled at CML for the whole question of assessing sales tax on internet sales, especially for a state where there isn't a physical location in that state. And that was a presentation that was scheduled. And then that day, the Supreme Court decision came down upholding the South Dakota statutory scheme, trying to get that done. So that's kind of legal nerdy, but it was kind of exciting that happened.
So that session was just a party?
It was just a party. That's right. It was kind of, it took the wind out of themselves because they were going to be talking about, the good and the bad of both positions, and the decision was made. So, but anyway, that was done. Congratulations to Councilman Lopez for your win. And then the only other thing is to wish everybody a happy 4th of July.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, sorry.
Is that? What's this from?
You're going on the report.
Libraries.
So did you?
I get them from everywhere. I love New York.
You're gonna-